Good morning. Our vision, a continuous infrastructure that's required for this, talking about content management, and then information intelligence, and then why Hitachi Data Systems. So we all know that the industry is changing, okay? And this is going to be a change in who the leaders that are in the industry today may not be there by 2018 or by 2020, certainly. So we have to be able to change and adapt. Hitachi and Hitachi Data Systems is going through a massive transformation at this time, okay? And to be able to make ourselves ready for this type of future. And you know the major drivers here. Some will say that these are technology drivers. These are really business drivers. The reason for so much buzz about this is because businesses need things like cloud so that they can be more agile. They can't take weeks or months to spin up an application. They need to be able to roll in the infrastructure. They need to not even be able to think about the infrastructure. They need to focus on the applications. So they need that agility that cloud brings. Social. Businesses need to understand the social sentiments of their customers. Okay? They need to know what their customers are thinking, how they buy things, how they do things. They also need to connect more directly with their customers. Customers are what are driving the business. And so they have to have more awareness of what their customers are thinking and what they're doing. And the loyalties of that customers have to be cared for through social. Then we have mobile. And this is really for two things. One is increased productivity for our workers, so they can be productive anywhere that they have an electronic device, a phone or a tablet or an iPad. Okay? It also enables us to connect more directly with our customers. So this is where people today in most of the progressive world are communicating through the mobile. And this is why mobile becomes important. And then big data. There's a lot of data that we collect that we aren't analyzing that could provide more value, more differentiation for us. So these are business trends that IT must be able to manage. If IT is not managing mobile or does not have a strategy for cloud or for social engagement, then you are going to be left behind. So these are business drivers that IT must be able to manage. Now, cloud adoption in Asia Pacific is really ramping up. 73% of our customers have either deployed or are thinking to deploy cloud in the next 12 months. Okay. Also, the reason for that is that 65% says that it has helped them to compete more effectively, and 77% agreed that it helped reduce IT costs. So cloud is a provisioning model that can lower costs, especially capital costs. And over half say that there still are some concerns about security and about loss of data. And so things that we're working on, like Sync and Share, the HCP Anywhere that was mentioned, these are designed to enable us to control the data, no matter where it is, in the public, private, cloud, or in our data center, but controlled from the data center, from IT. Okay. So in terms of mobility, of course, you see here that one of the largest countries in the world is South Korea. Small country, relatively small country, but very high penetration of smartphones, the ability to do things intelligently on your phone. You see where United States is. United States is only at 56%. So, and it's mostly because countries like Korea have companies like Samsung, okay, and Naver, okay, and there's also eBay that I visited yesterday that have driving a lot of this innovation. Okay. So this is a country that is in the mobile space. So if IT is not driving this or managing this, then IT is going to fall very far behind. Okay. So this the shift in evolution, fundamentals in business dynamics, more and more of the IT spend is being driven by the business rather than the IT. Okay? It's 55%. Also, most of the IT services, more of the newer IT services, are being done outside of IT. Now, just because you're using public cloud doesn't mean that IT just washes their hands of it. IT still is responsible for that data, for that information that's residing in the cloud. And we have now tools to allow you to do that. You can encrypt things and manage the encryption key no matter where it is in the cloud. In this cloud or that cloud or where it is, you can manage and control that, and you should in order to do that. There's, of course, this huge explosion of not for data so much as for information, okay, that's generated by the data. Okay? And they need automation, and they need to be able to access this very quickly. So this data explosion is expected to be about 6 billion terabytes by the end of 2014. You know, we've seen these charts of growth of data, of storage at about 60%, and I think that is vastly underestimated because we are entering the age of the Internet of Things, where machines are now starting to talk to machines and generating data that needs to be stored and analyzed. Okay? This is a number that may be surprising to some of you. It says that in the average enterprise, in your companies, in your enterprises, there are about 545 cloud services being used by your employees, public cloud services. You may not think that you're using public cloud, but your employees are using public cloud. Okay? And these are things like Google. I mean, I can't do my job without the ability to use Naver or Google to search and find information. And so your employees are doing this. So IT, how are you managing this? There are some services like Dropbox that was mentioned that is not secure. There are some services that are more secure. Do you define that? Do you set a policy for the use of these apps? Actually, this number, 554, when I saw it, I was very surprised at this. So I went back and researched it, and I found that this is an old number. This came from third quarter of last year. The current number is more like 740. So people are using more and more of these public apps in your businesses. So you need to leverage that, or you need to restrict it, but you can't ignore it. Okay. So those are some of the changes that are happening. Okay. So the integration of IT and business is very important. IT needs to internalize and understand the business metrics for success. And the business is depending upon IT. And I'm saying you because most of you are IT people here. It's depending upon you for the mobility, the social, the cloud, the big data, these trends that we're talking about. And so IT must be able to understand that and be able to bring that together into what we call this business-defined IT. So you saw the vision that we have for addressing this, and it's this three-step vision. It starts with the infrastructure, and we call it a continuous infrastructure because it must be able to continue to operate despite bad things that happen, failures, interruptions, changes in the business. This needs to be continuous. And the primary tool here is the visualization, the virtualization of this infrastructure. And then we have content management, where we need to be able to access data no matter where it is. We need to be able to manage data that is not structured, so it doesn't come in tables and rows, but comes to us as video feeds, as sensor feeds that we can then store into object stores. So a content management strategy is important. And then the information technology, where we get the value of all this information, this data, to aggregate it, analyze, and identify it. Okay. And all this we have to provide on a cloud provisioning model. So on demand, okay, using what we need when we need it, and then not having to pay for it when we don't need it. So this has to be provided as a cloud provisioning model. Okay. What we are going to do in the information intelligence is we're going to provide the analytic infrastructure. for the data scientists, okay? So that the data scientists don't have to worry about the plumbing. They worry about the analysis, the modeling, okay? And we provide the infrastructure for them. So starting at the bottom again, the infrastructure portfolio, it's a differentiated solutions. Our compute platform, our integrated converged platform that is the best in the industry in that it can be managed all through one pane of glass through vCenter. Hitachi Accelerated Flash, again, a unique implementation of flash technology. This is not your SSDs that are used in your PCs. These are enterprise class SSDs that have very high performance and very high durability. And then we have Hitachi Unified Storage, where this same storage can be used for block or for file. Okay. Next is the high-end storage, okay, the scale-up type of storage, the G1000. Behind us in the foyer there, you'll see demonstrations of these types of products that I'm talking about. We're also very focused on software-defined storage and software-defined data center. Now, this is a term that VMware has created, and we are embracing that through things like vVol and vSAN that VMware will be talking about to help us define the elements of the data center and the storage through software, through a single pane of glass. Okay. This then leads to non-disruptive migrations, where we can, as you know, the infrastructure ages and needs to be replaced on a regular basis. And as we get more and more data on that infrastructure, those migrations become harder and harder to do and take a longer time. So what we have to do is be able to do this migration without disrupting the application, without disrupting the operations of the company. Okay. Next is NAS and file storage. A lot of this data is unstructured data coming in through internet protocols. Okay? And so NAS becomes a very fundamental requirement as we address this type of world where everything comes in over wireless or wired connections. So we can also need to have consolidation of NAS. We need to have new types of NAS systems. As we talk about trillions and trillions of things, a file system can't control that. Okay? We have to go toward object-based file systems that can scale to petabytes and trillions of things. And again, here we need non-disruptive migration. Hardest thing is to migrate a file system where you have to get every file and migrate them across the directories. With an object-based file system, we don't have to do that. We can migrate whole files instantly. Okay. So the software-defined, software-defined, whatever it is only as good as the underlying hardware. So one of the fallacies we have in software-defined is that we could use software-defined with commodity. Okay, we don't have to worry about the infrastructure. But the infrastructure is really where the capabilities are. No matter what you do with the software, you are no better than what the hardware can provide. So the hardware base is very important. Okay, and we're building out the G1000, and we're building out future storage platforms. Some of them you'll see within the year. But we are separating the operating system that does the virtualization. We call it the SVOS, Storage Virtualization Operating System. Think of this as the hypervisor for storage. So with the G1000, we have now separated the operating system from the hardware, just like you do with a VMware hypervisor. Okay? And with this, now we're able to provide unified management and data protection. And then with the Unified Compute Director, we're providing orchestration of all this so that we can provide an interface into vCenter, into Hyper-V, into KVM, OpenStack, whatever the high-level interface is, you don't have to worry about the element managers underneath. Right? So this is how we're defining our software-defined. Our partners are also doing much of the same. If you look at SAP, there are two parts, the Business Suite and the Business Intelligence, and they ran on different databases. Most of the Business Suite ran on an Oracle database, and the Analytics Business Intelligence ran on SAP HANA, an in-memory database. What SAP is going to do is extend SAP HANA so that it also covers the business suite. Okay. So with this in-memory database, then business warehouse and business intelligence come together on one set of data. And Neville talked about bringing the application to the data rather than the data to the application. This is the trend that's going to be happening, and you'll see more of this in the next year. Okay. So we're going to be able to simplify this through our virtualization and our UCP director capability. What we are doing is through vCenter, you can set up everything in the infrastructure. Your vSAN, your VLAN, everything can be set up through vCenter. You don't have to look at the element managers. Also, we provide information to the operations manager. And through there, you monitor, you optimize, you model the capabilities, the changes that you need. So this is the model for our software-defined data center and how we will be working with hypervisors like VMware and KVM and OpenStack and Hyper-V. Okay. We are also one of the biggest providers for SAP. It's a unique capability we have because of our servers. Our servers have the ability to scale through PCIe to extend the memory. Okay. We also have the ability to partition through LPARs, which nobody else has capability in x86 platforms. This is Axia. They're an SAP cloud provider. Okay, they're international, and they are focusing their solution on our UCP for VMware and vSphere, and using the UCP director for that interface. They are able to spin up applications in a matter of hours or days versus months that they used to have to acquire before. Now, if we are going to be trying to do business-defined IT, IT must be able to talk the business language. Okay, in the business language, the business does not understand things like dynamic tiering or about LPARs. We have to convert those into business advantages, business value. And we talk about ROI, CapEx, OpEx, net present value. So we have been in Hitachi for the last 12 years been working on something we called storage economics, translating technology into economic terms that we can use to communicate with the business. Okay. Now we've extended that from storage into IT, considering things like cloud, what's the economic value of cloud, how do you express that to the business. So these are methodologies, some tools that we have that we can make available to IT to help IT communicate this and bridge this gap between business and IT. So looking at the content portfolio, we started out with the Hitachi Content Platform that was designed for compliance. You remember all the compliance requirements that were there about 5-10 years ago? This is where it started. So everything that's within this is compliant, okay? And it works across applications and can scale to billions of objects, okay? And it's governance-based. Then we have expanded that into cloud, okay? Using the agility of cloud, being able to aggregate, mobilize, and move things into the cloud and move it across clouds. We've also then enhanced it with metadata so that the metadata can be user extensible. In the future, we will not be using the data as much as we'll be using the metadata about the data. Okay? So the data may never be opened, but we'll be searching and analyzing things based upon the metadata. And as we do different things, we can append different metadata to that. And that's where we are doing that, and that's in our current version of this content platform. We're also allowing IT to control it from the data center, no matter where it is in the cloud, public, private, or hybrid. Okay? For instance, when we encrypt it with keys in the data center, and then it goes out to the cloud. Now, once it goes to the cloud, you don't know what device it's physically sitting on. The cloud user will cloud provider may have it on this device today, and then next week they may move it to another device. What happens to that data? Did they scrub that data from that old device? You don't know. But you don't care if you have it encrypted. And that's why it's important for you to control that in your data center, for IT to control that. Okay. Also, we talked about ability to use mobile devices. This is key. Users are using mobile devices. And so we need to be able to manage that and manage it behind our firewalls. So HCP Anywhere allows you to do that. Okay. We synchronize it with MDM types of devices. It's behind the firewalls. It's in the no man's land. Okay. And it is simple. To download HCP Anywhere, you go to iTunes if you have an Apple device, and you download it. Okay. And it's secure. It's encryption, password coded, authenticated via your Active Directories. Okay. And then this content platform can also be accessed globally. We can have 1, 2, 3 copies of this distributed globally, and the user accesses it from the repository that is closest to them. In other words, the fast proximity-based access. This will speed the productivity and collaboration no matter where we are, our workers are in the world. And these are active links. So if one link goes down, the operations continue via another link. And we have this, what we said before, the continuous infrastructure for this content platform. So we have in our portfolio, this cloud portfolio, the ability to use traditional data-centric, content-centric applications, web, cloud applications, mobile applications, and file serving from edge devices. And we can do that through, an IT can control it through one pane of glass. Okay. Then going to the information, we have, because we are part of Hitachi, a lot of vertical expertise in terms of healthcare, telco, automotive, as we mentioned before. Surveillance is now another one that we're focusing on. We have the information technologies. So we have control technologies, information technologies that we could bring together and leverage like no other company can. Okay. Because you don't see companies like GE or Siemens, they have the control technologies, but they don't have the information technologies. You have IBM and you have EMC. They have very good information technologies, but they don't have MRIs, they don't build nuclear reactors, and hybrid engines. Okay? Hitachi is unique in that they are a company that does all those things. So our portfolio today, we have the infrastructure to help you start today. One is the information management, both enterprise and mid-range. Okay? We have reliability, performance, sustainability, virtualization for efficiency, and then we have the converged solutions. We have our own servers, our x86 servers. Okay? We have the orchestration software that can manage it through a vCenter or through a systems SCOM for Microsoft. And then we have the content management mobility pieces that can go from edge devices, from mobile phones, and back to the back-end cloud, public, private, and we can move things across clouds as well. And so we can deliver this either through your data center or into the cloud, public, private, hybrid. But the key thing is all of this can be managed by IT and should be managed by IT. One of the dangers of the Internet of Things is we're going to have all these different verticals being provided with solutions, end-to-end solutions. And what happens then is they become silos. Okay? So in order to avoid those types of silos, we need to start with IT as the owner of the information and the data. Okay? Because if you don't own it, IT doesn't own it, then you become silos and it becomes even more difficult to gain the information we need. So this is my last chart, and it's a question to you as to where you think your IT is in terms of maturity levels in supporting the business. Okay. You start with step 0, not at all. Okay. The businesses drive all the decisions. They make the investments. They go out to outside vendors to help them make these decisions. The next step is reactive. The business drives the innovation, and IT kind of goes along and tries to respond as best they can, sometimes dragging their feet, sometimes saying, no, we don't want mobile devices, we don't want cloud. Next is collaborative, where they work with business, and they are able to drive these innovations to be able to get the value out of the information. And the organization then starts to adapt things more rapidly. And then there is proactive, where IT stands for information technology. Information technology. You are the experts. IT is the experts in information technology. So they should be driving the innovations in information technology. Okay. Because you are the experts in that. Okay. Now, I was going over this with our interpreter, simultaneous interpreter, Helen, and she asked me a question. Where is Hitachi Data Systems in this? Where are we in this chart? Okay, and I thought back on that, and I said, well, we're somewhere between 1 and 2, but in some cases we're number 3. Okay, an example that I gave you on the public safety, okay, that was driven by our IT. Okay, and it was driven because of the need to ensure that our employees throughout the world were safe. Okay, and so the acquisitions of companies like Pantocene and Avrio, okay, were leading, proactive, combining that with technology in terms of the video screening, and then combining it now with the heat sensing technology. So we're kind of spread across the spectrum, okay, and I imagine many of you are. But if you are down in the first step, not at all, you need to start to move the organization, because you will not be there in the next 10 years if you don't do that. Okay. So look at where you are today and look at where you want to be in the next 5 years. So I leave that as my parting challenge to you all. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your business. Thank you.